Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. I'm your host, Mari Reisberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Lisa Pagotto, founder of Crooked Compass and keynote speaker. Please enjoy Lisa Pagotto. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. Today I'm chatting with Lisa Pagotto, founder of Crooked Compass. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Mari. How are you? Thank you for having me.
I am well. Thank you so much for joining me. I am super excited to chat about creativity. And as I blazed through my introduction, I realized I totally forgot that you are also a keynote speaker as well as the founder of a company and business. So wanted to make sure I got that. Before we jump into our creativity conversation, why don't you share a little bit more about who you are and what it is you do?
Sure. So I work in the travel and tourism industry. I have two touring brands that I have developed and created. One of them is called Crooked Compass, and that is your small group tours and private tours, really focusing on your more emerging, sometimes stigmatized, sometimes a little bit controversial destinations, sometimes quite frontier in terms of lack of infrastructure, places where you definitely need creativity and on all sorts of levels. But very much for people who are very well traveled, looking for that what's new, what's next, very curious minded, very highly educated, and they're looking for that stimulus and that education to come from their travel experiences. So I've been running that business for 12 years. And then during the pandemic, when that business couldn't trade because our borders were closed, I launched a second business, which is called Crooked Compass by Air. And that is predominantly Americans coming to Australia, exploring our amazing country by private plane and helicopter to reach the most remote reaches, remote and exclusive cattle station stays, luxury lodges, those sorts of things. So I have those two. And then on top of that, I do a fair bit of speaking, focusing mostly on leadership and entrepreneurship, about, backing yourself when there is no proof. The evolution that comes with who you are is not who you are at the end of the journey. And all of the hurdles that come in between, they always come back to alignment and integrity.
My goodness, you sound very busy.
I'm busy though.
And it sounds like you love this work and it's such a calling for you. How did you get into the luxury tourism and travel pieces as well as kind of the more remote, maybe extreme isn't the correct term for it, but they sound more extreme than the luxury pieces.
Yes. So I've been in the travel industry since I left school. I went to a private travel college, and after that was straight into the workforce. And so 24 years I've been in the travel and tourism sector, and I've had my business for 12 of those years. And in terms of how it came about, there was just this opportunity. So for me, when I was in my early 20s and I did the gap year overseas and went traveling, I just wasn't interested in what everybody else was doing. I wasn't interested in drinking my way through the UK and through Germany. I had grown up with the most incredible grandmother, and she taught English in North Africa. And I wanted to see where she taught. I wanted to meet the families who she taught their children English. And so I went to Tunisia in North Africa, and that was my first glimpse of, wow, there is a whole nother world out there that is not Western Europe.
Right.
That is just so fascinating. And if this tiny little country can deliver this, what else is out there? And so I've always been drawn to the lesser known, going to places where the mass market are not, and always just had this craving and this curiosity for what is next. Now that I've spent 2 months in Africa, what is next? Now that I've spent a month in India, what is next? And I've just always kept searching and searching. And it got to a point in my career where There was nobody in the Australian market that delivered travel the way that I wanted to, unless you were a backpacker. And I was
Hmm.
past that point and I wanted to do it more comfortably. And it was a bit of a blue ocean. So I started with 6 small group tours and now we have over 100.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Wow. I can appreciate I too grew up traveling in I feel similar ways. It was always kind of steeped in the culture of the location that we were going. We were not staying in the big hotels or things like that. It was very much trying to immerse ourselves into the community that we were visiting and learning about as I traveled as a child and and as an adult. So I really appreciate that. When you think of creativity, what does it mean to you to be creative?
So for me, in terms of what it means, it's when things just flow naturally. That's
Mm,
probably it in its most simplistic terms. And as you said at the beginning of our chat, that my world is very busy. And so for me, creativity, I have to carve the time to allow it. It
hmm.
can't happen when I'm being pulled in every direction and I'm doing all of the things. But when I, for example, jump on a plane and no one can contact me and I am completely offline, my brain, my creativity just goes. And
Mm,
so for me, creativity is about making the time to allow things just to happen and to flow. They are things that, for me, deliver a response of excitement, of achievement in some sense, but
hmm.
also opportunity.
Mm,
And they don't necessarily have to make sense. It might just be me writing down a few words of things that are just coming to my head, and at some point they'll all come together to create something. But it will look different for everybody. For me, with what we create, in different countries, creativity is finding experiences that are outside the box, creating things that don't exist, and seeing how we can build them. And then
mm,
personally, for me, a lot of my creativity is done through reflective writing.
mm. Nice. Yeah, the kind of the contrast of the action part of creativity and generating and creating an actual thing versus not that reflective writing isn't creating a thing, but has more of a it feels a little quieter to me when you're
Yeah.
talking about it. What are some of the creative pieces that you've had to employ with the traveling, if infrastructure isn't available, how do you go about navigating that?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different layers to answering that question. If infrastructure is not there, it might be something as simple as we might need to camp for a few nights and
Mm.
making sure we then come back to that creature comfort that our guests are expecting. But if you want to go and see this remote tribe that are 5 days away from civilization, that's what we have to do. And on the
Hmm.
other hand, with creativity where we operate, getting creative when things go wrong. That's a
Mm.
big part of it too, because nothing follows a textbook when you're in the middle of nowhere. You
Right.
have to be able to think on the fly and you have to be able to think under pressure and you have to use every corner of your brain and the team that are with you to be able to find the best possible solution. And sometimes it's really random ones, like putting someone with a dislocated shoulder on the back of a reindeer to get to the nearest medical place because you can't get a helicopter in because the range isn't long enough, type of thing.
Right.
So there's always innovation and creativity every single day in the business, even, at the desk, coming up with better processes that are more engaging for our guests, that are more beautiful for our guests.
Mm.
Yeah, every touch point of our business has its own different style of creativity.
Absolutely. It sounds like you were speaking from experience, putting someone on a reindeer,
We
traveling
have
them
all
out.
sorts of creative evacuation stories. There are many.
I can only imagine. Yes. And I guess I have curiosity for your own travel. What are some of the ways that you had to get really creative to navigate challenges or unexpected things when they pop up?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. You mentioned earlier extreme travel, and whilst we don't do extreme travel within my business, I personally do extreme
Oh,
travel outside of my business. That's my thing. The pictures on the wall behind me here are from some of the most extreme destinations that
oh
I've been
wow.
to. And that's places like Yemen, Lebanon, South Sudan, those sorts of
Mhm.
countries. In terms of getting creative in those places, Yes, that is a whole another level. And that is not for anybody to just go and, some people would say I'm crazy for going to those destinations. But you end up getting a bit of an edge about how to deal with things when things go very, very wrong. And
Yeah.
in a lot of those destinations, there have been some quite serious situations where sometimes there is literally nothing you can do except be calm.
Mm,
And that is creative in itself because it has to be forced. When you
hmm
are on a bus and someone comes on with a gun, and you just have to be calm, and you know that there's someone on the bus that's going to act like a fool because of the pressure, and you
Right.
have to play your part and you have to choose how you behave in that
Mm,
situation. Or I've had another situation where I was trying to leave a country and they said to me, literally, as I'm being stamped out through immigration, your visa's not valid. And I said, well, I've been here for 10 days. You stamped me in on this visa. Look at the dates on it. No, no, it's not valid. I knew what they wanted. I've been around long enough to know that they want money.
hmm
My passport was taken off me. I was taken into a room. I was put in a room with a very intimidating man. For a first time traveler to these destinations, absolutely terrifying. But when I
hmm
actively choose to travel to these places, you become conditioned and you understand that people generally want money or power.
hmm
And for me, I knew straight away this situation was money and I was not going to give it over. I went into this room. He threatened, he said his things, he left me there for an hour. I was like, I'm going to miss my flight. He came back, he got nowhere. My passport was thrown at my face and I was sent through and I got on the plane. Um, there's so many different things where you have to be able to switch between different levels of creativity, and it means different things to different people. Like
hmm
creativity is not just about being able to paint or being able to make a candle.
Right.
It is about being able to adapt. It is about being able to think on your feet, and it can be taken in so many different forms depending on your world and what you need to be able to be creative in. And yeah, it's just something I find it truly fascinating. Creativity is just one of those things where immediate thought is pretty things, but then there's the extreme side, and creativity under pressure is a whole nother level of being creative.
Absolutely. I can appreciate you bringing there's just the levels of creativity and how each of them requires very different versions of it. And creativity under pressure, how we react or respond to situations that we find ourselves in. I think it, I'm equating this also to like being on stage and having something go horribly wrong, and we have to get out of the situation with an audience and
Exactly.
that as well. But yeah, some real life and death situations that you're talking about and how creativity can really support you in those moments if you're
Yes.
willing to tap into it. Because I think oftentimes we go into that fight or flight space and it creativity doesn't often happen in fight or flight. And so,
No, no, it doesn't. And I think that's one of the big skills of learning when you are in fight or flight, recognizing which one you're in,
mhm.
and then working out what can I control? How do I bring that nervous system down? Because
Yeah.
me being in either of those is not going to be helpful.
Exactly, exactly. So really getting that nervous system safety back on board to be
Exactly.
able to make a different choice or respond in a different way. Yeah. Well, I mean, the amount of traveling you have done, the extreme traveling that you choose to do, I'm so curious in your life today, who or what inspires you?
Oh, I yeah, in terms of who inspires me, I guess it depends on which part of my brain you're talking to. If it's from like a business sense,
Mhm.
there's the people that inspire me are like an Oprah, for example, someone who
Sure.
just pushes through, doesn't give a shit, and
Mhm.
just makes things happen. There's that side.
Right.
Then, here within Australia, there's one of our politicians who was completely thrown under the bus during the pandemic, but she was an incredible leader and she
Mm.
just did not budge on what she truly believed in. And so, I love seeing that. But then I look at people who are more in that exploration space, who do like these hardcore expeditions from the geographical North Pole to the South Pole by kayak and bicycle and foot. And I'm
Yeah.
like, wow, this is incredible. So depending on which layer of my world we're talking to, that there's different people sitting in each of those areas. But generally people the common thread is people who just back themselves.
Mm. Yeah. And what is it about people who back themselves that generates inspiration for you?
People that back themselves, they're not crippled with excuses. They
Hmm.
just make the thing happen. And that's a big thing that I often talk about is encouraging people to believe that they can do the thing that they think that they can't. And
Oh.
the people that I aspire to or that are inspiring to me have done that. They've backed
Mhm.
themselves. They don't listen to the other voices. They just truly believe in what they do. They have this incredible passion, which is what drives them. And they just stick with this integrity and this alignment. And if it doesn't fit within how I want to feel and how I want to progress, then there's no space for it. And that discipline is, yeah, it's something that's so incredibly powerful and something that's very difficult to train into yourself.
I was just about to say that powerful and very difficult
Yes,
to
yes. But those
activate.
who master it are the ones that truly succeed.
Absolutely. You know, when those voices, the other voices show up for you, how do you kind of clear the path to keep yourself, to keep you moving forward in that backing yourself experience?
Yeah, well, this is where a lot of my writing comes in. When I
Mm.
get those voices, I write. I'm
Mhm.
like, I need to stop because this is happening and I'm not liking what I'm hearing. It's kind of trying to derail me. It's making me confused. Now I'm not sure if I'm making the right call. I need to stop it.
Yeah.
And we all know what it's like when you have that monkey brain and you could just get caught and you keep going in circles and circles and circles. For
Mhm.
me to break that cycle, I have to write it down and I have
Mm.
to just leave it. The sleep test is another thing. Just leave it and come back and review it the next day with a fresh brain, with fresh
Mhm.
eyes, or depending on what it is, bring in another perspective.
Mm.
That is my way of trying to break that cycle of being stuck and swamped by those external voices because we all have them, no matter how much work you do or how much you sort of condition yourself to be able to squash those. They are always still there. And there's
Mhm.
always something that someone will say, even if you're the type of person that really isn't swayed by what people think, there will still always be something that gets in.
Mhm.
And yeah, it takes a reset to be able to squash it, get back on top of it, and just go, hang on a minute. No, this was a jealous reaction from somebody, or hang on, they don't
Mhm.
truly understand my business. That's a very logical answer, which doesn't fit with where I'm going with this. And you just need that time. And for me, writing, doing the sleep test, and then coming back is my way of working through that.
Nice. It sounds like you use it and successfully use that
Eventually we get there, not all the time. It's
yeah.
not as quick and black and white every single time. Sometimes it is. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a process and depends on how heavy or how big the thing is. If it's like a staffing problem, obviously that's a longer period to process
Hmm.
something. If it's something really short, like you got an abusive email from an unhappy client, that's very different.
Right.
So yeah.
To discern which piece or part you're actually needing to
Yeah,
navigate. Yeah.
and also how much time do you want to spend on this? How much energy do you want it to suck
Right.
from you? Is this
Hmm.
something that you want to drag on for a week? If not, okay, we need to work through this.
Yeah. So I mean, it sounds like if you're running 100 trips a year, or
A year.
I'm
Yeah.
assuming a year, eh, the number of people that involves and personalities and navigating all of that together, how does creativity show up when you're crafting these trips and getting the people together to lead them, or the support staff and all of that?
Yeah, well, I guess there's two sides to it. There's the building process and the execution process are the pretty creative sides, the fun bits where you're pulling it all together and then obviously having it executed and delivered on the ground with your guests. That's the beautiful creative side
Mhm.
where, we are delivering what we've been promoting and bringing it to life for our guests with a lot of storytelling from our guests,
Mm.
from our guides. That's something that we push very, very heavily is storytelling, which
Mhm.
brings, we don't want someone regurgitating a textbook
Yeah.
to our clients. We want them to talk about what life was like for them under the Soviet Union, for example,
Mm.
what they experienced when they had to go and live in a sanatorium for 15 years. We want those stories to bring it to life. And that's the creativity on the client facing side. On
Mhm.
the internal side, it's probably not so much creativity, but a structured process.
Mhm.
Um, Around expectations, and it is literally it's process. It's not pretty, it's not fluid, it is black and white. So
Mhm.
there's the two sides.
Mhm. Yeah. I have so many questions about these tour guides who are spending 15 years in a sanatorium and under Soviet rule and all of that, but I feel like that's another podcast. For you in your kind of travels and your own creative experience of the world and creative expression, what are some of the things that you are dreaming about, are wanting to have more of in your own life? And what are those steps that you take to achieve that?
Yeah, sure. So for me, I'm just forever curious. I'm always looking for that what's new and what's next, just like our clients, but probably at a more extreme level, because I want to be able to find and create and deliver something truly special for them and also
Mm.
for myself. Because, of
Hmm.
course, every time we operate one of our tours, and we know that it's something that's perspective shifting or life altering or something for our guests, like that's an incredible feeling to know that we have created something that nobody else is offering.
Hmm.
So for me personally, it's that constant hunger, that constant
Mm.
curiosity, searching. For me, one of my big passions is using travel as a way to support fading cultures and
Mm.
diminishing tribes. So I'm constantly searching for those groups and understanding what support we can provide that is not going to be negative to them
Mhm.
from a tourism perspective, but that can only help them in
Mm.
terms of retaining their culture, preserving that culture, as opposed to it's too difficult to be a hunter gatherer that lives in the mountains. Everybody's slowly making their way to live in the cities. Like, we really want to find our part to play to preserve that. And that's my favorite thing about what we do when we build our tours is finding those little pieces,
Mhm.
and knowing that we make a difference. So I can give you a couple of examples to put that context into practice.
Sure.
So in Mongolia, which
Mhm.
is one of our destinations, there is a fading culture and diminishing tribe that only has 200 people left in it. In the
Mm.
very north of the country, these are the guys with the reindeers that I mentioned earlier. And they are very different to the rest of Mongolia. They
Mm.
are nomadic, but they don't live in gers like what you
Mm.
commonly think of. They live
Mhm.
in teepees. And they travel with their reindeers. Their reindeers are their mode of transport. Their reindeers provide milk for them to make cream and yogurts and those sorts of things. But what they live off is they forage. So they live off berries and nuts and tubers that they find in the forest.
Mm.
And so the number one thing that is killing this tribe is septicemia from gum infections, from cracking nuts and cracking branches and things like that. And so we work very closely with the Australian Dental Association to
Mm.
send over outside of our touring product, but to send over 12 dentists every year to provide proper medication, to provide hygiene,
Mm.
education, which is very difficult when you don't have access to, running water. They've got river water or melting glaciers.
Mhm.
But just to be able to play our part in knowing that we are trying to make a difference in the number one thing that is causing this tribe to shrink.
Mm.
And that's one of the reasons that we have the permit access to be able to visit them.
Mhm.
And same thing when our groups go there from a consumer or a guest perspective, you're not allowed to bring in lollies and plastic and things like that for the children. You bring in secondhand clothes and shoes and
Mm.
things like that that will make a difference so that they don't have to come into the city. They can stay out in the middle of absolutely nowhere. These guys are 5 days by road from civilization,
Mhm.
and there are no roads to reach them. Like, you trailblaze through nothing, and then jump on horseback because the cars can't go through the forest. So that's one example where when I was constructing that tour, so that was probably 10 years ago that I built our first tour out there. That creativity project was just incredibly rewarding as each piece slowly fell into place. It was very hard. There was a lot of red tape, but
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of the basis of what we try and look for in everything that we operate.
Yeah. How long does it take for a tour like that to actually go from inception to participation?
So something like that with that level of complexity, two
Hmm.
and a half years
Wow.
to build.
Yeah.
Something that's much more simple that doesn't involve fragile cultures that might be in a little bit like going to northern Peru, for example,
Hmm.
2 months.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah. So just like understanding the time and how much creativity goes into 2 months versus 2 years
Yes,
planning
exactly. And
and yeah.
the 2 years is generally to do with red tape and permits and process. And there's a lot of waiting where nothing's happening. Um,
Right.
but yeah, I would say maybe 25% of our tours sit in that category, that extreme build.
Mm-hmm.
And they're probably our best sellers if I was to look at it that way, because people want to know that they're making a difference.
Sure.
And we do share that story of we haven't just thrown this together with ChatGPT, here's a pretty itinerary. Like
Mm-hmm.
there is a real story behind this and there is a real intent as to why we have built this.
Mm.
And people respond to that because everybody loves to feel like that they're making a difference and they're making a conscious choice
Mm-hmm.
um, for the positive.
Absolutely. Well, for individuals who are looking to, I guess that's a two-part question. Individuals looking to get into the tourism and travel industry, what are some things that you would advise them to do if someone just were beginning this journey?
Travel and tourism is definitely a passion industry. It
Mhm.
is not, you're not going to become filthy rich by working in travel and tourism, but you can make a difference. So
Mm.
if you see the travel industry and go, I want free travel and I want to get paid to travel, don't join it. Go and
Mm.
try and become an influencer or something because that's not what it is. It used to be that, but it's not
Mhm.
that anymore. Things have
Mm.
evolved so much, especially with AI and with influencers. It's just and budgets have changed since the pandemic and now that the current situation that we're in. The travel industry does not have the cash that it used to.
Mhm.
And so, for people who are joining the industry, you have to be truly passionate about travel. You have to be truly passionate about education, but beyond it just being for yourself. It
Mhm.
has to be a passion for you wanting to use travel as a force for good to educate other people who would be your clients
Mhm.
and showing them that there is something that is so fragile and so precious that's out there beyond just big Western five-star resorts. I mean, it really depends what your interest is in travel. If you love
Sure.
luxury, sure, you can go and be a luxury travel agent and you can sell all the beautiful lodges and all the luxury boutique hotels, and that's fine. That's very easy. It's quite transactional. But if it's
Mhm.
more of a deeper, personal, I want to feel like I'm shifting something for somebody else, then that's where
Mm.
you move into the deeper side of the product
Mhm.
scope of the industry where you can create product, where you're not just selling out of a brochure, you are literally building it for your
Right.
client.
Absolutely. And then for individuals who are just dipping their toes into being a guest in a travel industry space such as yours, what advice do you have for them looking at the tours you offer or and how to pick something?
How to pick. Yes, I mean, it really comes down to value and what value means to the client.
Mm.
If they're about price, they certainly won't come across us. If they are about wanting to do things that are truly immersive and that are
Mm.
truly off the beaten track, not cliche off the beaten track, then it's really about analyzing. You'll come up with a couple of different companies and find those tours that may be to the same destination, but the itineraries will have their own nuances
Mhm.
and really picking them apart and asking the questions. One of the big things that we see with our product is that it is so high touch. We don't get people that just go, yep, 10th of June, book. They don't do that. They ask a lot of questions beforehand because they're researching and they're wanting to make a considered choice. So it's about getting that nitty-gritty detail on a surface level. If you just kind of skim a website or flip through a brochure, you'll see a certain level. But if you are really wanting a certain type of experience, I would encourage people to speak to that operator and to ask the questions to make sure that what they're going to put their money down towards is really going to deliver what their outcome is that they want to achieve as a traveler.
Absolutely. Those are great pieces of advice for anyone traveling. Doesn't matter what version of it, but important to ask all those questions. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Lisa, this has been such a treat getting to chat with you. I have one last question.
Sure.
What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
Oh, it feels light and it feels just happy and just, it's like there's no weight when you're being creative. And well, for me, when I'm in that creative zone, there is no, oh my God, this has got to happen. I've got to process payroll. I've got to get this deadline done. I've got to be at school pickup. None of that is there. When I am in my creative zone, there are no distractions. The phone is on flight mode. The notifications on the laptop are off, or my sound is on mute. And I'm just in that creative zone because I need that flow. And so not having the distractions, for me, that's elating. If I could not have a mobile phone, that would be incredible. But for me, it's just that lightness and that freedom of letting things come and scribbling things down and then seeing how they'll piece together and what could this become. It's that curiosity. For me, everything always comes down to curiosity, but just having that space to allow it is very uplifting.
Yeah, it's beautiful. As you're talking, can feel the lightness and the weight, like no weight of what you're saying, and recognize that as well. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. If people want to learn more about the work you do, the tours you offer, all of the things you have out in the world, how could they go about doing that?
Yeah, of course. So for our Crooked Compass, so that's our international travel product, the ones that are to your more emerging destinations, that is www.crooked-compass.com. For anybody who's keen to explore Australia by private air, that's crookedcompassbyair.com. And if anybody's looking for a speaker around any of what we've spoken about, it's lisapagotto.com.
Perfect. Well, I will put links in show notes so people have very easy access. And thank you so much for taking the time to join me. This has been such an eye-opening and wonderful conversation.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.